Hi everybody, my name is Lana. Tell me, what was the most unusual thing that happened to you at your school? Maybe you fell asleep in class? Or you got hit by a ball in dodgeball? Or maybe you even met your first love? Maybe you even experienced all of that. But as for me, I will definitely remember what happened to me at school forever. Subscribe to the channel, and then I can tell you the story that changed my life. When my parents first brought me to school, I realized almost immediately that I would be really bored. 'Cause the thing is, I was a super energetic little kid, and I couldn't sit still for the life of me. It's no wonder that spending the whole day sitting behind a desk was just unbearable for me. That's why I started to pull pranks on my classmates and teachers. I just wanted to brighten up those boring school days and have some fun. Some of my smaller pranks included putting gum on a student's chair and gluing a teacher's pen to their desk. Yeah, and by high school, everyone knew that I was the biggest prankster ever. And surprisingly, everyone wanted to be friends with me because I was really popular and I was super creative when it came to the most brilliant pranks that would have everyone bursting out laughing. For example, during a break, when no one was in the classroom, I would take a backpack from one of my classmates, pull out all the textbooks, turn the backpack inside out, and put everything back in. That sounds pretty fun, right? It was even funnier when I did that to everyone's backpack. It was so funny to watch all my classmates struggling with their backpacks. But, of course, this would always disrupt the lesson. Our teacher, Mr. Stewart, truly hated my pranks. He knew full well who was behind them all, but there wasn't really anything he could do about it. However, one day, he got his chance. Right before the start of our last year of study, our school announced that it was taking part in an exchange student program. That meant that some of us would be sent to a different school. And you know who Mr. Stewart chose from our class? Well, of course, it would be me. I tried to refuse because I didn't want to go to another school. All of my friends didn't like that as well. Who would make them laugh with funny pranks if I was gone? But our teacher was adamant and sent me to another school for a whole year. And I do understand why he did it. After all, I guess my pranks were a little bit annoying. And now that he'd gotten rid of me, everyone in the class would be silent and obedient. So, there I was, in a new school, in a new class, and I didn't know anyone. It was so incredibly awkward to find myself among all these people that I didn't know. And everyone was looking back at me and whispering. It felt so uncomfortable. And also, the students at my new school weren't nice to me at all. They were really cold to me and wouldn't even talk to me. It felt like I'd offended them somehow. But the only thing I'd really done was say hello when the teacher, Miss Morgan, introduced me. "Everyone, this is Lana. She'll be studying at our school from now on," she said. But no one even smiled. I felt like such an outcast during the breaks. I missed my old school so much. Everyone there was always happy to see me. They were anxious for the new pranks I would come up with. This treatment went on for several days. All the kids in my new class saw me as an enemy or a spy. I just didn't understand what this was all about. So I decided to talk with my new teacher about it. Ms. Morgan listened to my problems and she didn't even look surprised at all. She told me she'd expected a reaction like this from her students. It turned out that as a part of the student exchange program, I'd replaced a guy called Austin in the class. He'd been adored by all his classmates and hated by his teachers because he liked to pull pranks and disrupt class. That's why he'd been sent to my school, and I'd been transferred to take his place. "Have patience, Lana. They'll get used to you soon enough," said the teacher gently. "And forget about those stupid pranks. After all, you'll teach them some good behavior." So that's what this was about! They'd traded in one prankster for another. Well, they would see. I'd show them good behavior. So I decided to set up my favorite prank with a coin at my new school. It was really simple. I just had to wait until the teacher had gone to wash her hands in the restroom and quickly tape a small coin to the tap. And that's what I did. When Ms. Morgan turned on the tap, she immediately got drenched from head to toe. My new classmates loved the prank, and they immediately began to treat me differently. And our teacher had no clue what had happened for the longest time afterwards. Even though I was finally starting to make some friends, I still wanted to go back to my old school and my old friends as soon as possible. I didn't want to stay in this new school the entire year. So, I figured I would just come up with a way to achieve that. First up on the list, I needed to find Austin, the guy who had taken my place at my school. I was able to find him, and I met him after classes and told him that I was the student whose place he'd taken. It turned out that we were really similar. We both loved pranking people. Austin had already pranked Mr. Stewart as well. He smeared the blackboard with soap before the lesson, so Mr. Stewart couldn't write anything on it. Mr. Stewart had gotten mad, and the whole class had been dying laughing. And based off that, I'm not gonna lie, I liked Austin right away. It turns out he wanted to go back to his school too. So I told him my newly formed plan on just how to do that. To pull this off, we needed to start pulling pranks at the schools again. And we had to make them even cooler than before. After a while, the teachers would just run out of patience, and they'd let us switch back. Austin loved my plan. He suggested that we meet up at some point and prepare for the plan. I gladly agreed. So I went back to doing pranks with renewed vigor. I had a bunch of cool ideas. First of all, I slipped a sticky slime into the pocket of Miss Morgan's jacket. When she put her hand into it during the lesson, she immediately screamed in fear and started to pull her jacket off. Of course, she realized it was only a harmless, colorful slime that she'd touched. But the lesson had already been ruined because my classmates were splitting their sides. Another time, I sent around a note during another class. It said, "Hey, look at the ceiling. $100 is glued up there." Of course, that wasn't true, but every student who read the note immediately looked up and began to stare at the ceiling. After a while, the entire class was looking up. And when Ms. Morgan took away the note and read it, she told us,
"What a stupid joke! What are you getting distracted for? You know perfectly well there's nothing on the ceiling."
But even she couldn't help it and looked at the ceiling. Gosh, I can't believe even the teacher fell for my prank. All of us started laughing again, and the lesson was disrupted. Austin and I met a couple times a week after classes and shared the stories of our pranks. I told him what I'd done to Ms. Morgan, and he made me laugh with what he'd done to Mr. Stewart. For example, he snuck up to the teacher's table in the canteen and unscrewed the cap of the mustard sauce. Then, he carefully put it back on the bottle. When Mr. Stewart decided to add a little bit of spice to his lunch, he turned the bottle over, and the cap fell off, and all the mustard fell on his food. He jumped up, and the entire dining room had started laughing. As I listened to Austin, I just liked him more and more as time went by. After all, he was just like me. We spoke the same prank language, and we even seemed to think a lot alike. It's no wonder that after a while, he told me that he liked me. I told him I liked him back. Long story short, before we knew it, we'd fallen in love with each other while discussing pranking our teachers. And just like that, several months passed. I became really popular at the new school because of all the jokes and pranks I was pulling each day. Every student wanted to be friends with me, and every teacher rue the day that I came to this school. To be honest, I wasn't too bothered to return to my old school, since I was pretty happy where I was. Austin met new friends at my old school too, so we both felt pretty comfortable where we were. We saw each other after school, and we spent a lot of time together. Everything was going so well that I started wishing that we could be at the same school together. I begged Ms. Morgan to let Austin come back to his school, and she flatly refused.
"2 pranksters in my class at once? No, having you alone is quite enough,"
she said angrily. And when my boyfriend approached Mr. Stewart with the same request, he was denied too. Mr. Stewart refused to let me come back to my previous school, and it made us really sad. Austin and I could only meet after school, and so went our last years at those respective schools. My boyfriend and I were graduating. We'd already passed all the tests, and the most important event ever was coming up, prom. I'd been almost unanimously chosen as the prom queen, and I needed to ask someone to go with me. The only person I would consider asking was Austin, but the teachers, they wouldn't let him come. I met my boyfriend after school, and I complained to him about how awful the teachers were being. Austin said that he'd been chosen as prom king, and he was forced to look for someone else other than me to go with too. He wanted to go with me, but he just wasn't allowed, just like I wasn't. All in all, they were going to ruin the most important school event for us because we pulled some stupid pranks. It made us both really sad. We didn't want to go to prom with other people. We felt like Romeo and Juliet, but there really wasn't anything we could do about it. And that's when our classmates came to our rescue. They'd somehow found out about us dating and decided to prepare a surprise for us. My friends were all busy printing, cutting out, and gluing stuff. And finally, they brought my boyfriend to prom. Not him exactly, but a life-sized cardboard cutout of him. Ms. Morgan couldn't do anything about that. So I chose my cardboard Austin as the prom king. And with such a strange event as this, he'd finally made it to prom with me. And at the same time, Austin was dancing with a life-sized cardboard cutout of me at his prom. We were together in the end, thanks to cardboard and our friends. And after prom, we met up and were able to hang out together all the rest of the night. Since then, my boyfriend and I have decided we're never going to be apart again. We're even going to the same college now. But we've decided we should probably stop pranking people. Maybe because we're afraid of being separated? Or maybe just because we've grown up. What do you guys think helped me change so much? Please share your ideas in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, okay?